Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers and citizens of Toontown. Jacob Weil here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
That's right, folks. We're here to celebrate the a landmark in film history and animation history too. That's right. We're here to talk about the one, the only, Who Framed Roger Rabbit in honor of its 35th anniversary.
Yeah, folks, that's right. Of course, this is a hugely important film for a variety of reasons, a comedy variety of reasons, one might say. But yes, so we would be remiss if we did not discuss Roger Rabbit. So we figure we talk about it, and just kind of serendipitously enough, it's kind of during Spielberg month, and Spielberg had quite the hand in the making of this. So happy accidents all around. So
I mean, and it's surprising that this is like one of the ones you guys haven't talked about already.
yeah, well, it's kind of this. Sometimes you think like we talk about it so much, how have we not actually done the full thing? So well, there you go. So we're gonna remedy that tonight.
And we figured it'd be better than to do it now than wait another 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, like as you said, Reagan, this movie is definitely a landmark. It's like we can probably basically say that Disney and animation as a whole would not be the same without this movie. as it, I mean, yeah, that would be at least look very different.
Very true.
So, like, basically, basically the Disney Revolution, the Warner Brothers Revolution, they would not have come to pass if it most likely if it wasn't for this. So we owe a lot of our actually we owe a lot of our favorite childhood memories to this movie, whether we had any experience with it when we were young or not. Which
Yep.
which actually does lead us to a good discussion point. When did you first come across this movie, Dragon?
Well, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint the exact moment, but it was probably because I remember I'd go to my go-to movie theater, and there'd be like this is before they refurbished it, and you have like the old posters along the hallway, and one of them was for Roger Rabbit, because they had a lot
Oh,
of the film circuit of the '80s there.
it was like an old movie house kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know if old movie. It kind of was eliciting the feel of an old movie house. It was the AMC theater, but the AMC theater, like back before its refurbishment, it was had like a lot of like old film nods all around the place,
Oh yeah.
like big like film strips with like iconic little imprintings of different movies on there. And then when you walk down the halls of the theater, you see all the old posters from like the '80s and early '90s. And one of them was Roger Rabbit. Another was Batman '89.
Unfortunately, I don't think like any AMC does that anymore.
Not anymore, I'm afraid. No, the only thing they have is like there's a big wall of pictures, but that's it.
There's the one at my mall, the one that there's a one in a mall near me, and like basically all the most they have is like quotes along like the entrance to the floor.
Well, I think Roger Rabbit. There are three things that come to mind. So there's the movie poster. There's the
The
when it,
iconic one where he's outlined by the film strip.
oh yeah, that's the poster actually. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So there's that. So again, there's that poster. There is when it was premiering on Cartoon Network, the teaser, which is so weird when you look at it now, especially after you see the movie a whole bunch of times. You realize like, yeah, it's pretty obvious who the bad guy is when you really think about it. But in the marketing and in the development of the movie, in fact, which I believe is what they're pulling from with the marketing, it was the whole thing of like, there was a question of who indeed framed Roger Rabbit between the three suspects, which were originally all considered.
Yeah.
You Judge Doom, Jessica Rabbit, yes,
Yeah, in the background, yeah.
yeah, and Baby Herman. That's correct. Yeah, so
Like,
that's what the marketing was. So the marketing was something like that, which is like, who did it? Was it the femme fatale? Was it the baby? Was it the judge? It was always like, man, this movie looks really interesting, and beyond that, probably some VHS marketing as well, which probably has like a similar ad in there. But yeah,
the funny thing is, I can't entirely remember where my first exposure to it was. I honestly want to say it was like kind of like a DVD I saw. Like I might have heard it in passing before, and then like saw a DVD of it and thought it looked interesting because I was familiar with both Zemeckis and Spielberg at that point, and obviously with Disney and animation. I thought I'll give this a try, and obviously here we are.
Yeah, so I mean, just overall though, this movie is a game-changing film for animation. Robert Zemeckis, he made another cinematic classic. He's got Back to the Future and Roger Rabbit, both debatably perfect films. To a degree. Where these like things that are like at the very least emblazoned in the giant film canister of all the great classics.
Oh, it's like, oh, I mean, there are definitely some ties to Back to the Future in this movie, to be sure.
And vice versa with Back to the Future too.
Yep, and I think this movie wouldn't have been made if it wasn't for Back to the Future.
Very true, which we'll get into. Regardless, this movie, it's a testament to, I think this movie, ultimately, when you look at it after all these years, it's a testament to one of the things Brad Bird's always said, where Brad Bird famously said, animation is not a genre. He really hates one of the great out-of-context quotes is, the next person says the animation genre, I'm gonna punch that person.
It's not a genre, it's a medium.
Exactly. So that's so this film I feel is a testament to what he was talking about there. This movie is a great detective story. Everyone's
it's a parody. It's like a film noir. It's a film noir, but it's also a film noir parody at the same time.
yeah. So it's kind of like in the Young Frankenstein. It's kind of the Young Frankenstein, or Young Frankenstein. While a comedy, is an absolutely wonderful Frankenstein movie.
Exactly.
So everyone's at the top of their game. It's meta, it's funny, but for me, I think what really makes it stand out is it's so heartfelt in all the right places that just I feel have like made it like not lose an ounce of impact over the decades. It legitimizes absurdity and has a logical logic everywhere everywhere you turn in this movie, which is certainly a boon for me. I love me some illogical logic, and this movie is drowning in it.
And of course, you're also probably a sucker for detective stories too.
That too.
I mean, your most favorite character is the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
Sure, this movie is kind of light on gadgetry, but it makes up for it in all like the zaniness of the classic cartoons and everything. So,
What I'm saying, I mean, there's like even without gadget, I mean, we have like the whole warehouse of props, Jake. There's gadgets galore in this movie, in a sense.
Oh yeah, that is actually true.
Yeah, I mean, more props, but still, it's cool.
Yeah, and despite what like one famous cartoon director said about this movie, this movie actually is obviously a loving tribute to the cartoons of the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
Like you probably know who I'm talking about when I say that.
Yep.
Yeah, well, so we'll probably get into that with the background and everything, or maybe in passing, but. And this movie, as you all know, helped reinvigorate like interest in the golden age, and also sparked animation going forward. Like this and the Little Mermaid helped propel Disney back into the mainstream. The original Little Mermaid, obviously.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But I just want to say, considering that also came out this year, the remake came out this year.
Yep. All right, Jacob, are there any comments you feel we should bring up now, or should we save them for later?
Well, we have one. It's like we have Jim who commented at 11 this morning, long before our stream even began, saying like my introduction to Roger Rabbit was actually Roller Coaster Rabbit that played in front of Toy Story. Roger Rabbit was a masterpiece that watched so a mermaid could swim. That's a good one. I think Little Blue just says, "Please,
please, Eddie."
Yep. And C&K, his introduction was like being Roger in the Disneyland Fun sing along. My first proper time growing up with the movie was 2003 2-disc DVD.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah, I have that. That's great.
I think I have that one too.
Yeah, that's basically that was like the. I think it might have. I don't know if it was 03 or 04, but whenever it came out, it apparently was like the definitive,
I think that it might have been like the 25th or something like that.
Well, yeah, it was. Well,
wait, to be the 15th, I think.
Yeah, it was 15th. Yeah, they did a Blu-ray release for the 25th, but it wasn't as great as the DVD release. But yeah,
which is surprising.
I think the DVD release had like the cool box art and had like little 8x10 photos and stuff. Like, it was cool.
Yeah, I don't think I had that. I did have like the one with like the 2-disc bonus features.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's the same thing. Maybe one of them was packaged a little better. But the point being, yeah, it was the same. And it was good. So,
The golden age of bonus features has definitely kind of died.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Pixar. Here's the thing. Briefly, because I can go on for ages about this one. Pixar's bonus features have thankfully been consistent and good, with only one exception. To be fair, the pandemic had hit during this, so for some reason, there's only all the Pixar films have commentary, but one.
Yes.
Luca.
Yeah, like do you mean the DVD releases of the two of Soul and Turning Red have commentary?
I know. Oddly enough, they have commentary, and oddly, Soul was literally right in the Soul was right in the thick of it, and yet Luca, no commentary. I don't get it.
That is weird.
Yeah. Anyway.
Unfortunately, I mean, this movie obviously has commentary, which is why we're not doing one ourselves. But unfortunately, that was not uploaded to Disney Plus.
Sadly, which again is a mistake on Disney Plus's thing, but also Disney Plus right now taking me off because for my research for this movie, I was going to look back on some familiar favorites like Dan Lanigan on Prop Culture, visiting Roger Rabbit, but they got rid of it.
They got rid of Prop Culture.
They got rid of Prop Culture.
Seriously?
No, Jacob, it's a long.
Yes, that was more of incredulous. Seriously, instead of like you know what I'm saying. I was like,
oh, I know. Yeah, seriously, I don't know. Disney Plus. Seriously, what are you doing, man?
It's like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's weird. But the bonus features for here, like they actually did have roller coaster rabbit short and also the deleted pig scene.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll talk about the pig scene later, but yeah. All right. So I guess let's just let me unravel some of this background that we do have.
It was actually inspired by a novel.
Yeah, so Gary K. Wolf, he was a sci-fi writer who bridged into some other genres. Gary K. Wolf, he basically he kind of noticed the uptake on. We had a lot of ads and we had a lot of ads on TV, which were sort of we had live action. It was live action, but we had animated characters interacting with the live action people for commercials, and that kind of gave them the light bulb, hey, what if we fleshed that out into a world in which we could see that happen? Only it was a little bit more like comic strip cartoons versus animated, iconic animated characters. So you still have your characters like Snoopy and everything were there, but again, it was more like a Snoopy versus like a Donald Duck,
and thus gave birth to Who Censored Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, so Who Censored Roger Rabbit is built on that premise, which I mean, foundationally is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but again, has a lot of extra kind of things that do go in different directions. Like when a cartoon character dies, they can have copies of themselves. So there's a whole shadows or what have you.
They're called doppels.
Right, doppels. Yeah. So here's the thing.
Basically, the book is vastly different from the movie.
Yeah. Just again, basically, it's similar in premise, only without it was less old Hollywood movie making. It was more like modeling, in which they take pictures, and that's how you get the comic strip going. But anyway, I will shout out our buddy Phil Mackey, who unfortunately we couldn't get him because he's busy with stuff. But Phil Mackey, he actually sat down with Gary K. Wolf and talked about all that sort of stuff with him.
Nice.
Yeah, so this became like Gary K. Wolf. He wrote Who Censored Roger Rabbit. Took a long time. He actually, I believe, he's done sequels to it. Disney has option, believe it or not. So there are a few.
The thing is, that this was published Disney originally. The original people that when it was under Ron Miller, Disney bought the rights to it, to make it into a movie, and was originally planning to be somewhat faithful to it, but until they kind of went into its more modern direction. The funny thing is, Gary K. Wolf actually prefers the movie version to the original novel that he wrote.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, and the novel and the sequel novels that you mentioned actually are sequels to the movie.
Yeah, it sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not something that happens often.
Oh. No, very rarely, because usually you have a whole Mike Mignola, Guillermo del Toro thing, where again they have respectfully different takes on that character when they go into the sequels and everything.
Well, to be fair, Mike Mignola also worked on the second Hellboy too.
Well, that's a little bit trickier than.
All right, I know, but we're not here to talk about Hellboy anyway.
Anyway, point being, Yeah, so Disney at this juncture, this is during the whole Waking Sleeping Beauty era of Disney, in which they're desperate for blockbusters. This is like right before, like in the early '80s, before we reach obviously the Renaissance, and of course this film being a huge component to that. But that's the thing. So Disney's pulling Ron Miller under the old Disney or the very top of that kind of that '80s, like the '80, like '84, let's say
Who
roughly.
who is technically Walt's son-in-law?
Yes, Rolt's son-in-law, Ron Miller. He seems like a nice guy, but not really a head for like. He wasn't really into the creative side of things. Just more like, I'm just going to keep the business running. So,
I
anyways,
mean, I
Ron.
mean, I mean, obviously he did some things that worked out well, but overall, it wasn't a very good leadership.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying it was more of like kind of like at a duty bound kind of leadership than it was really like a creative, like a guy who wanted the job desperately. He gave it a shot though. He kept the lights on. Anyway, so Ron Miller, he was looking for a blockbuster, and that's when he attained the rights to the book and everything, and they kicked it around. Basically, the development period on this movie, like I believe, like 7 years from start to finish, in terms of like just optioning it and everything. So, they kicked it around a bit. And like Gary K. Wolf, he already worked long and hard finding a publisher in the first place, and it was a bit of a hard sell until they had this test footage done. And this test footage was really like the thing that got them the green light. It was two things. One, it was the test footage, and two, it was Spielberg expressing interest.
Like once it actually got into it's like instead of like the comic strip version, the '40s cartoon stars.
Yeah, I mean they were already going. Yeah, they're going in the '40s direction. The rewrites have been done. And that's really when Spielberg he read it and he was really blown away by it. And oddly, again, years had gone by at this point. This is where Spielberg has, this is kind of like a proto. Honestly, a lot of this movie is a prototype for the DreamWorks collaboration with Spielberg, because Katzenberg is very much in the fray here. Kind of. The baton has been passed to Katzenberg to really, leaning into the blockbuster aspect for Disney. So he was very Say what you will about Katzenberg, but he was a defender of this movie against all the scrutiny and everything. So he was very much protective of it. And Spielberg was a big help as well. So Spielberg, he's the one who got all the elements together. In fact,
and Spielberg is obviously a noted animation fan.
Yeah. So Spielberg, what he did, he charmed Disney and Warner Brothers and the animation studios into basically allowing them, giving them the film rights and everything, basically allowing them to have the characters intermingle and get them all under one roof for a movie.
There were actually quite a few. There are actually a couple studios that didn't allow their characters to appear in this. Like most notably, King Features Syndicate, who didn't allow Popeye to appear.
Yeah, I mean there were a few exceptions. Popeye and Tom and Jerry being the most notable absences.
It's like the funny thing is apparently they were like for Popeye's singular appearance they were asking more money than what Warner Brothers was asking for their entire library,
which clearly did not make sense. So,
which apparently later they came to regret, like, what, we should have put him in the movie. What were we thinking?
Yep. Well, because Robin Williams is Popeye. That's all we got.
I mean, I haven't actually seen that movie, and technically Disney was involved in that too. Funnily enough.
Yep. Funny how that works.
And I don't know. I don't know the story behind Tom and Jerry. I don't know if they were even attempted.
Well, the word is they were attempted, but it just didn't. For some reason, didn't go. They didn't get the okay.
I mean, it's clear they didn't have an issue with like Woody Woodpecker because he's in there, and they're owned by that was like MGM too, right? That's Universal. Never mind.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So Zemeckis wanted this badly. Unfortunately, this is kind of like because this movie's in development so long, around the '84 time period, Zemeckis. But that's sorry, the movie's in development from like starting at '81 in terms of getting things options. The point being, somewhere between the '81 to '84 period, Zemeckis tried at first to be the director on this. So this is the Zemeckis pre Back to the Future, in which he did. He was again Spielberg knew the talent of this guy, but unfortunately, everyone was pretty much shutting doors in his face because his movies were kind of bombing at the box office.
And like used cars, among other things.
Yeah, which again, good movies, just again not lauded by any stretch.
Like then Romancing the Stone like paved the way for him to direct Back to the Future, which led the way to him direct this.
Yes, that's the thing. So, and time passes, and we get to that, kind of the latter half of that, in which we do get Romancing the Stone and Back to the Future, in which it's like Zemeckis, come on down.
Yep, and honestly, I think he was the right pick for this. I mean, considering how he was and how he was at the time, I think he was the perfect choice for this kind of movie.
And again, Spielberg vouched for him as well. And that was the thing where Spielberg always had Zemeckis' back, but he couldn't really get him work until after Romancing Stone Back to the Future. So ergo, that's how we get him on this. So
I mean, technically, this movie wouldn't really exist without in its current form without Spielberg's star power either.
True. So
and go on.
So Zemeckis, he basically wanted to do an animated film like a live action film. That was essentially how he wanted to do it. He just wanted to make it like he would any movie, which again is something I'm sure Brad Bird kind of tipped his hat to. And yeah, so it was very much. See, at Disney, in that early '80s period, the writing was an afterthought because it was kind of the assembly line process years at Disney, in which it was very much like, okay, we're gonna animate, and then we're just gonna add a little bit of writing, and we're gonna kind of match the mouth flaps if we can. That's essentially kind of how it was early on.
But of course, to direct this, they needed an animation director to match the talents of Robert Zemeckis.
And that's when the incomparable Richard Williams comes into the fray.
Oh yeah, Richard Williams is already well known for his own studio and producing several cartoons, including the openings for several Pink Panther movies.
Correct. Anyway, Richard Williams, of course, he's very well known for his side project, the infamous, but also famous, I guess, kind of cult famous, side project, The Thief and the Cobbler.
Yes.
Which, that's a whole story on its own. The point being, that was his passion project, which he's very well known for. This guy is an animation wonderkin, one could say. Now, importantly, here's the thing I really know with Richard Williams. With all the talent that we mentioned, this guy was not a Disney animator, and given the fact that they're going to have a lot of Disney characters in this, and Disney's going to release a Touchstone and everything, all that sort of stuff. Disney, they were a little perturbed by the fact that, wait, you don't want to use our animators? Well, it gives, man. Jacob, why didn't they want to use a Disney animator?
Dragon, I don't know why.
Okay, I'll tell you why. It was because Spielberg and everyone involved, they wanted kind of Zemeckis as well. He wanted kind of a three-pronged thing. He wanted he loved the Disney style. He wanted kind of the characterization of Warner Brothers, and very much kind of the Tex Avery kind of style of humor.
All right.
So he wanted those three things, and he worried that if it was just Disney, it would be purely in the Disney style. So he needed someone who could combine the best aspects of all three of those.
Yeah.
Which
and
Richard Williams.
And for his work, he won an honorary Oscar award.
Oh, many, in fact. Well, the movie won many.
Well, the movie won 4, primarily for film editing, special effects, and he won occasionally they give out honorary Academy Awards, not an official one, but an honorary one. They gave one.
Toy Story got one, and so did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Snow White got a big one and 7 little ones.
True.
But Richard Williams received one for this movie for his achievement in animated characters.
Yeah. And again, of course, all the other breakthroughs too. I mean, Zemeckis is the guy who this is him kind of bridging between Back to the Future 1 and 2. As Zemeckis was getting really experimental with cameras and stuff. This brought us the VistaVision camera, so this allowed us to kind of again, the VistaVision camera did a lot of the really cool in-camera effects we had on Back to the Future 2. We had Biff Tannen in the same car with his future self, stuff like that.
And even then, even the same bridge was used in both movies.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, the bridge in Back to the Future, not the bridge, the tunnel.
Yeah,
the tunnel.
Okay.
The tunnel from Back to the Future 2 was also the tunnel to Toontown.
Yeah. So let's see. So Spielberg was behind the Bob Hoskins casting because, Bob Hoskins was kind of unknown to American audiences, and the big thing was that he was. They'd considered bigger names, and they kind of tracked down a few. But Spielberg just, when he got one look at Bob Hoskins, said, "This guy looks like he's from the '40s. We got to cast this guy. We got to put him in there."
A couple. I remember a couple of the contenders were they wanted Harrison Ford, but he was too expensive. They wanted to get Bill Murray, but they couldn't get a hold of him. And apparently Bill Murray screamed in public when he learned about it. He would have killed to be in this movie, apparently.
Yeah, you could have had Bill Murray and Bugs Bunny in the same scene together.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah, would have
like
been
that,
dream come
like
true.
that, yeah, like that had ever happened.
Yeah, like that's never gonna happen again.
Yep. But like,
No, we lucked out on that one. However, he was more with Daffy Duck than he was with Bugs Bunny, and technically, so still,
I mean, yep. And of course, the thing is, when I first, like, obviously, I saw this movie several times before I saw the. I think I actually might have caught it on TV first before I saw it on DVD. But I said that, like, of course, Bob Hoskins' iconic performance. This movie wouldn't have worked nearly as well if it wasn't for him.
because he committed. I mean, he took mime classes. He was flawless in kind of like selling that he was talking to animated characters, like looking them in the eyes and everything. He had like excellent muscle memory for the scenes.
It's like the fun, and the thing is, like, he was so good at doing his voice. Like when I saw the documentary, I was like, wait, he's British?
You didn't know he was British when you watched the thing?
No, I mean,
Right.
I didn't know he was British until I saw the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, he's good. I mean, you can't even tell.
Yeah, the Brits are taking over, man. They kept playing like all the big three iconic heroes have all been played by Brits, and now so is Eddie Valiant. They're taking over. The
Like,
British invasion has happened.
and I remember him talking about, like, I remember him, like, mentioning that, like, when he talked to his child, and I told him that he worked with cartoons. His child was mad that he didn't bring any of the cartoon characters home with him.
Yeah, but Bob Hoskins, years later, before the Parkinson's really took hold, he was when he reflected on the movie, he said it was like one of the only movies he'd ever done that his kids could watch, and it always meant something special to him.
Yeah, it's also like one of the movies he's most proud of.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, funny enough, Tim Curry,
Was considered for Judge Doom.
but this is hilarious to me. He was turned down for one specific reason,
He was too scary.
which is the second time that's happened to him, by the way. Because the first time was
Well, this is actually the first time.
oh yeah, well yeah, sorry. Yes,
Chronologically.
fine. You're okay. This is throw my whole flow. All right, yes. So this is the great. Thanks.
First of two times.
This is the first of two times this has happened to Tim Curry. All right. So the first time was this. Second time was Joker from Batman the Animated Series. It was too scary.
One can only imagine, and considering how nightmare fuel inducing Christopher Lloyd is as Judge Doom,
It does make you wonder, though.
like, I can wonder, like, would Tim Curry truly have been scarier?
Probably.
Yeah, I can see it, but of course, I think Christopher Lloyd was the perfect choice for Judge Doom.
Of course, we had the wonderful Charles Fleischer playing Roger Rabbit. Now it's interesting. Paul Rubens was actually the original. He was kind of the test Roger Rabbit back when they were doing like the early animation tests and everything. It's kind of neat of someone to fill in. It's kind of like who could we get for this character? And eventually we get Charles Fleischer, and he was so committed to the role. What did he do on set, Jacob?
He asked them to make him a bunny costume.
So he was dressed. I don't mean just like wasn't wearing like an Easter bunny costume. He had like an actual like replica of what Roger Rabbit would wear, and he was wearing it the whole time.
And
like,
like,
wore, like a little yeah.
And apparently, people in the commissary were like, "Did you see the rabbit?"
I heard this funny story. The thing is, like, I've heard it kind of told a few different ways, but like the main thing is like when they go to the commissary and he would like, still be dressed in the rabbit outfit, then they say, "Oh, is that Roger Rabbit movie?" They're never gonna believe it. That's an animated rabbit. They're never gonna buy that.
He's like, 3 years of film school and I'm a rabbit.
Yeah, of course. I heard one thing of like the Superman. Probably the guys who were at Elstree shooting the original 2 Donner Superman were like, "Oh, that's never gonna work. They gotta work on their effects on that one."
if only they knew.
Just love that.
It's like, and of course, like Lou Hirsch, who voices Baby Herman.
They're not putting me in a diaper.
It's like, if they think I'm going in a diaper, they have another thing coming.
Very funny.
Which, yeah, to be fair, I could understand his concerns.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So, of course, now the way they're probably wondering how the heck do they shoot a movie like this, because it's groundbreaking technology, and the biggest, most gobsmacking effect that we have in here is the intersection of things. Now, the way they did that, at least one of the ways.
Yeah, something like this hasn't been made before or since, really.
I mean, you're not to the same degree of quality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for example, we basically the way it was done is they had an intensive rehearsal process in which the rehearsals you had these foam dummies of the characters with the voice actors off to the side, or at least some actor off to the side, reading the lines. This is cueing the actors, and this would mainly help get the camera angles for the shots, but also would help the actors rehearse all the physical beats and everything.
Like help build muscle memory and eye lines.
Yes, the eye lines being very key because that's like one of the big selling points for the performance. And secondly, on a technical side of things, you had like these metal rods and kind of robot arms that basically would like motion like all the interactive elements, which basically, as we'll get into it, is kind of like it's kind of like the thing you see in cartoons like Scooby-Doo or something, like where usually you have like a painted background, and then like the one thing they're going to interact with would be suddenly animated. So it's kind of like something similar to that. Or the better comparisons like Blue's Clues. In Blue's Clues, you had kind of like Steve is in kind of an animated house of sorts with like a few set elements, but you see an animated thing, and he would go to reach for it, and it would become live action. So it's kind of a similar principle. It's a principle of like the interactivity of items, and there's a lot of rotoscoping going on. So it's a lot of really good techniques.
This movie combined like onstage puppeteering, rubber models, like miming, robotics, like pretty much anything they could possibly do to make the effect work.
But not a single computer was used.
Not a single computer.
Not one computer. Steve Jobs is in the corner crying. Why won't they buy my products?
Yeah, he'll be fine in a couple of years.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he'll be fine. Just give him less than 10 years. He'll be fine.
Basically,
yeah.
But yeah, but so basically they did everything like a meal but I mean it's like Baby Herman. Baby Herman, like him holding the cigar was actually just a rig that somebody like controlled with their arm and that they would draw over.
Yeah.
Same with Roger Rabbit smashing the plates on his head.
Of course, we had some excellent Alan Silvestri score.
Yeah, which is they basically describes like a bizarre mix of film noir and cartoon style music.
Yeah, and apparently the test screenings were a little trepidatious, but Zemeckis he had final cut, so he refused. He famously said, "I believe in this movie. I'm not going to touch a frame of it."
Yeah, well, basically, like the first testing audience was a bunch of high school kids and their dates.
Oh yeah, it was a terrible pull for a test audience.
Yeah, and considering that the first few opening scene was just the Baby Herman cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them walked out, or just like they threw their hands up, like, "What is this?"
Yeah, well, fortunately though, they stuck to their guns. Everyone involved stuck to their guns. The movie, released on time, became the second biggest hit of 1988.
Yeah.
It was only the second highest grossing movie of the year behind Rain Man.
Yep. So of course, won a number of technical achievement Oscars, and years later we have we have shorts. We have we have Mickey's Toontown. We have Roger Rabbit cartoon Spin, and again talk of sequels. And there was even an animation test for one of those said sequels in which they tested rendering Roger Rabbit in kind of like a 2D 3D hybrid, which looks good. But that's the thing. It's just kind of the project's kind of been gathering dust since. Like it always gets like talked to, like, hey, we're gonna do it, but still not so much.
And not to mention, he even cameoed in Roger Rabbit's still not gone. He did technically cameo in the new Chip and Dale movie,
which has been kind of in many senses a spiritual successor to Roger Rabbit. It's the fact that it kind of did similar techniques, mainly in the blending of like we're bringing all the cartoons together, sort of thing.
Which though did actually use computers.
Well, that one did, yes. It's still not as impressive, but
I mean, to be fair, that's still a good movie though, and it's still a good movie though. I still stand by Chip and Dale being a good movie.
Well, yeah, it is a good movie. I'm just saying it's no Roger Rabbit, Jacob, but yeah.
I know of course it's not Roger Rabbit, even though Roger Rabbit is in it.
True. Okay, so let's start breaking things down here that are in the movie. Of course, Jake, leave it on in the comments if anything really juicy comes up.
All right. I was like, there is this one. Like, there's such a great hot sex in Alan's score.
True.
Which is actually good background for what it is. Like a lot of the film is actually scored traditionally, but like there's The actual jazz is like basically all improv based on like the jazz band that was at the recording studio.
Yeah.
Like the famous saxophone, like when Jessica's theme was actually improvised.
Hmm. Right. So, yeah, so as we kind of mentioned, so the movie opens with Roger and the little Roger and Baby Herman cartoon, which is a great introduction. It's a great misdirect, and my favorite component of this is like the reveal of the behind the scenes of like the classic Looney Tunes esque cartoons of the '40s. We just have this again, as I kind of mentioned, I love it. This is where we really get like the thing of like, for me as a kid, it always blew my mind because it was like that Blue's Clues effect of like, again, like the old animation conceit, but realized in live action. Like when you interact with something, it changes like from a background element to like an animatable element or like a tactile element.
I mean,
So
and the cartoon itself actually wouldn't really be too out of place in the like from the 40s.
yeah, as I was saying, I love the fact that we have like this full-on, excellently animated, like '40s cartoon, and then we reveal this live-action fridge prop.
which Robert Zemeckis has actually gone like that was the most important scene to get right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Because if that scene didn't work, the rest of the movie would have been thrown off.
that is true. It was a gamble. It's a gamble to open your movie with something diametrically, kind of like a little different than how the rest of the movie is going to go. But it also needs to cement who Roger is in his day to day life, and what is like his whole shtick is like him as a cartoon character, and then like the transition point of the movie. It's the tone shift.
Like and with the director Raoul J. Raoul, play
Yes,
who's
Raoul.
like who's funnily enough played by Joel Silver.
Yep.
Like who at the time they basically only cast him because like he had like a public feud with Michael Eisner at the time.
Oh yeah.
And when Michael Eisner was like Pagoda was like he was pretty good. It's just kind of funny that they like cast him so kind of almost to spite Michael Eisner.
I think that's awesome. Honestly, I think it's really funny that they're gonna do that despite eyes. It's kind of fun.
I mean, I don't know if it's like solely because of spite, but I think it was mostly because of spite.
Anyway, so yeah, it's a great kind of addressment of like the whole like painted, again, kind of the painted like kind of background to like the live action props thing. I don't know, I always loved it. My favorite detail too is like when we started to see the other background elements that went into the cartoon, like we saw these live action pair of legs like on a mechanism that were walking. So basically, that's the explanation for how we get like in Tom and Jerry cartoons. We have like the mother, the lady of the house, kind of like from the knee down. So that's how we do it. It's a pair of legs. There's no woman there. There's no actual.
And of course, an early work for April Winchell too.
Yeah. So point being, it's a huge moment, and then like we need stars, Roger, not birds. Like Herman was great, but his lines, but Roger, he's blowing his lines.
And all it is like instead of stars over his head, he had birds.
Speaking of stars, let's talk about Eddie Valiant.
Eddie Valiant.
So Eddie Valiant is seriously one, if not the best Bob Hoskins performance, for my money at least. I will argue this is possibly Bob Hoskins' best performance ever. What he does is Eddie Valiant.
As Z and K pointed out, as soon as that British accent came out in the behind the scenes footage, I went, Mr. Smee? which another Spielberg collaboration, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just the fact that it's this it's kind of like a Muppet performance on steroids. You have like a live, like we have kind of our human actor playing against the Muppets, but you have like a Michael Caine, for example. He's playing with utter conviction and gravitas, but playing it straight and playing it directly to his fictional counterparts.
I mean, the entire plot is almost absurd, but.
No, yeah, sure, but I'm saying though, I like that we're kind of taking that familiar idea and we're just kind of like putting it on steroids and just kind of seeing it just kind of like flourish here and just like going full tilt it for like the full movie.
And but be like, I mean, his opening scene is like fantastic, and the fact that like openly establishes like who he is, like he has a distaste for tunes, even though we don't know why yet.
Like his first line of the movie, it's almost like look at Toy Story. There was like a lot of arbitration or what the heck Woody's first line was going to be. So in a sense, it's like, what is Eddie Valiant's first line going to be?
Tunes.
Tunes. It's like It's like just scoffing like tunes, and he takes a swig of booze or wild turkey or what have you.
Wild Turkey.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's a compelling performance with characters who are not there and there's interaction, but again, at its heart, it perfectly he perfectly sums up, the definitive hard-boiled detective. He's a PI with a chip on his shoulder, and I love that he has this history of being this well-loved, like the PI in Toontown, and of course his brother died and he became an alcoholic, and he's taking these like sleazy PI jobs to pay the bills. He's just lost all hope and kind of lost the pep in his step.
It's like as revealed, like he used to love tunes. Like he and his
Yeah.
brother, his brother used to love working Toontown. Like, and the tunes clearly loved him because as the newspapers, like he saved Donald's nephews. He cleared Goofy of spy charges. They cleared Goofy of spy charges.
Yeah, but that's it. I love that we have those details, and we'll get to that sequence later. It's one of my favorite sequences of the movie. But we have that, but we also the fact that all the tunes that he does interact with, like the large majority of them, know him by name, and there's like a familiarity there, like Eddie, like the Betty Boop. I think that's great.
He's like, Eddie Valiant.
Betty, what are you doing here? And that's what I'm saying. There's that loving, just kind of like there's a history there, and we get snippets of it in little places, but it paints such a great picture.
And you can tell that he still has a soft spot for some of them, like mainly Betty, because I think because his brother was a fan of Betty.
I believe so. Yeah, at least that's yeah.
But he's hostile towards tunes. He doesn't always like them, but like certain ones, he'll still have like a soft spot. Like it's also kind of like also a hint of like his like. Of course, he's like going to warm up and soften up as the movie goes along. He still has a soft spot for some of them.
So that's the thing. It's good to kind of give him like little acorns of like, okay, so he's not like a bigot necessarily. This guy is going to have a justifiable reason not to like tunes.
And we do figure out why.
Yes, and it's a great reason. It's one of the big standout scenes of the movie. But again, we'll get there. Meanwhile, I want to talk about Dolores. So Dolores is an unsung hero, Roger. She's wonderful.
It's like Dolores is great. I mean, she's like the server at the bar who Eddie owes at the terminal bar who Eddie owes money to.
Yeah. She's I love the implication in the in kind of the desk scene to me. Looking at it, and I could be wrong here. I think the implication on the rewatch I never considered is that I think she was the friend and secretary for the PI business. Like she was their Karen Page to a degree.
It's like two flatfoots and a floozy go into business.
So that's the thing. That photo makes me think that she worked there with them, and then after Teddy died, Eddie really lost his way, and she became, she worked at the station diver. Because think about it, she says she's afraid of getting fired when she's at the bar. So it makes me think that maybe somewhat of a recent job, or at the very least not like something she's been doing forever.
Well, I mean, it's clear she's at least gotten used to it with the way she holds the plates when the red car goes by.
Yeah, sure. So, like not brand new, but that's the thing. It's the fact it feels like she might have done something else before this job.
I mean, that's a lot of the movie is good at giving subtle subtext to these characters.
So the biggest thing that Dolores has in her favor is one. I love that she's very much like the term I think is for the secretary is famously, and Stanley even has this with Flo. I think it's Flo Steinberg, if I'm getting her last name right. It's Gal Friday. She's a Gal Friday type. We have the femme fatale, which is Jessica Rabbit, and we have the Gal Friday, and that's kind of a trope to the 40s. So our Gal Friday here, we have this literalized hard-boiled scene for Eddie where we have the egg guy.
It's like Angelo.
We have Angelo the egg guy, and he's making fun of Eddie on a really insensitively, and he didn't know though. He didn't know.
It's like working for Toons, huh? It's like Jelly Willy or Screwy Squirrel.
So of course, and he kicks the stool out from under him, shoves the hard-boiled egg in his mouth. Always a gross bit for me as a kid. Ew.
It's get this straight, meatball. I don't work for Toons.
So of course, what's his problem? And then we have the best delivery in the whole movie.
It's like
we have
Dolores explains it's like Toon killed his brother, dropped a piano on his head.
So that.
Yeah.
So that sells, that tone is flawless in the way that the line. basically that sets our tone flawlessly there. And that's absurd, but stone cold serious in her delivery of that very pathos driven bit of information. Just the fact, like, she says it with there's a sincere sadness there. It's like, Toon killed his brother, drop the piano. Like, she can so rarely can you get away with drop the piano on his head, have it actually have gravitas and not just be ha ha funny, be clever funny. It's like, ordinarily I'd be laughing at that, but that is really, that's really gripping.
But the thing is, it works because of this setting, and the movie has demonstrated on a couple occasions to this point. It's like as RK Maroon himself pointed out, it was like, yeah, you can drop anything on a tune, it'll shake it off. But the movie goes out its way to demonstrate that when those cartoon physics and antics are used on a human, they can be deadly.
But yeah, so in bringing that up, Jacob, we have a few great subtle moments in the movie in which we see that we have a few moments in the movie that do factor that in a subtle way in which you can kind of play it off of Bob Hoskins' reaction to the scenes in which, like, characters will say that, and then you kind of contextualize it, like, man, that must really make him think about, what happened to his brother, and that's really sad.
Oh yeah.
It's like the RK Maroon thing. Let's see. So, it's thinking about him when you factor all that and you go back to the opening scene of the movie and just have him off to the side. It's like this hard-boiled detective scene, and a refrigerator is dropped on this effing Toon's head, and he can just walk off, but not my brother.
Toons.
Yeah, that's what's feeding into that Toons delivery. That's great. All right. So go on.
But as I said, like, this movie does go out of its way to, like, highlight, like, yeah, the Toons can do all that stuff just fine, but when demonstrated on a human, it's like, as several times throughout this movie, like both the past tense and one of the leading conflicts of this movie shows that when demonstrated on a human, they can have, like, very obviously deadly consequences.
All right, so he takes the RK Maroon job, which is like, take pictures of Jessica Rabbit having an affair.
We haven't actually talked about RK Maroon yet.
Well, you brought him up.
I know. I'm just saying we probably should talk about him.
Yeah, so RK Maroon,
he's Roger's boss.
Yes, he runs Maroon Studios.
I just love the call. It's like, it's obviously it's a reference to what a maroon.
Yeah, we have what a maroon. We have we have essentially Wile E. Coyote's boss to a degree, with Acme.
He's the supplier of the Acme products.
Yeah.
It's like RK Maroon runs Maroon Cartoons, and of course he's like giving us like, no, wait until he gets up and then drop the boulder on him. which I think, to be fair, would probably be funnier.
So we address the whole, the Warner Brothers and Disney characters under the same roof thing. The idea that you have Disney on loan because they work for peanuts, as we demonstrate with Dumbo.
It's like, got him on loan from Disney. Him and half the cast of Fantasia.
Yep.
Which, if you think about it, Fantasia wasn't really a financial success, so that could have been a way for Disney in that universe to recoup some money.
Oh yeah. All right. So let's see. So we anyway, so we go to the Ink and Paint Club, which is a great set piece. This is like a kind
Walt
of a nod.
sent me.
Yeah.
And of course, one of my favorite, just subtle, not really subtle, but favorite, just one-off just exchanges in the movie was like, nice monkey suit, wise ass.
Yep, sets a tone.
Yeah, I just love the gorilla. I just love the design of the gorilla.
Yeah, he's wearing like the little dicky or like little the mini. Like, he can't fit the full suit on, so he has like the dicky, which is very much sticking out.
Nice monkey suit.
Yeah.
And of course, we get to see one of the most famous scenes in the movie, which is the dueling pianos.
Yeah, so something to mention too, the Ink and Paint Club is kind of a nod to the Cotton Club. I believe in Harlem, right? That was in Harlem.
I've heard of the Cotton Club when I was doing research on this movie, but I'm not sure exactly where it is myself.
Anyway, the point being the idea that, if you think about it, in the course of the movie, we have Man and we have Toon, and the only times they intersect are on the studio lot, in which they would work together. And then other than that, they're separated. And the Ink and Paint Club's like one of the other few exceptions of the place where they can intermingle. So again, it's sort of like some people have like really got really like put Roger under a fine tooth in really fascinating ways. I'm not knocking what they've laid out. They've analyzed like like race relations between man and tune relations to again how it parallels the race relations of the 40s, which I mean it is interesting and it's cool. But yeah, it's always like the fact that we we kind of see what they're doing outside of the studio, and like because otherwise we put all the tunes in Toontown.
And as RK Maroon said, like Toon Review, strictly humans only.
Yeah,
basically the tunes are allowed to work there and perform there, but not actually be patrons.
There's a lot of subtext.
And of course during there we see the octopus dealing with drinks. We see the penguin waiters who would later go on to star in Mary Poppins.
Oh yeah.
And of course we have Donald and Daffy dueling pianos.
Apparently, like the whole deal, especially with the main characters, the main like landmark characters, was like they have to share the exact same amount of screen time together. You can't have one upping the other. It has to be completely even,
down to the frames.
Oh yeah,
which explains a lot of the camera shots with it and poses that they have with the characters.
So this is another thing too. On the rewatch for the anniversary, it kind of occurred to me, like, yeah, when Eddie is seeing that cannon come out of the piano again, that's
you don't actually see Donald.
Well, sure.
It's like, well, Donald's obscured by the cannon while you see Daffy. Okay, go on.
Yes, my point is Eddie. When the cannon comes out, Eddie is, he's there's an element of there's a little trepidation on him. He's like a little, it's again. I think it's bringing it back to the brother thing too. Of like, okay, this cannon, a really dangerous cartoony element could have severe consequences, and we see it like blast through like the live action elements that are the pianos. So I don't know. It's just kind of like another thing of like when the he's just kind of petrified of like dangerous cartoony props because of like some PTSD with his brother.
Yep, and of course it's like revealed that they never finished the act because they always like blow each other up at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually did read about a deleted scene where it was actually all part of the show, and Donald and Daffy are actually amicable with each other.
Yeah, which would have been cool. There's only one completed deleted scene, which again we'll get to with the pig thing. But aside from that, you're right. There are deleted scenes that were not finished, or at least in the storyboard phase, that have not really seen the light of day, from what I understand. It's been talked about. And
of course, we can't ignore the fact that Mel Blanc returned to voice many of his iconic roles for this.
And this was essentially his last. I'm sure there's probably a little commercial or something here and there in like the last year after this, but this essentially was the last. Yeah.
Okay, what I'm saying is, I was trying to say.
Oh, what do you got?
Like, this is like his last major theatrical performance. Like, he had like one minor guest thing afterwards, but this is his last major theatrical performance as these cartoons.
Yes, it's quite the send off.
Yes,
it's a great tribute to the man, frankly.
Like, and ironically enough, it was in a Disney production.
Yep. All right, so. Let's see. So, oh yeah. So, Eddie is there. Of course, we have the Betty Boop scene, which again, the history of Betty Boop is rather nice. Then we have this amazing introduction of Jessica Rabbit. Now you'll notice this is actually kind of a little fun factor. She's wearing a sequence dress. It looks amazing in the way it's animated for this landmark sequence. However, you'll probably wonder, why isn't she wearing that sequence dress throughout the rest of the movie? Well, it's because
the special. Okay, sorry.
You might think it's I'll turn it over to you. You might think it's because she's going to change out of like her stage attire for the rest of the movie. That's the logic they're operating under, I guess. But the real reason is what, Jacob?
The special effect was basically too hard to pull off throughout the rest of the movie. It would have been too much more expensive.
It would have crippled them. It would have we cannot animate the sequence like every frame. It's crazy. We're gonna.
Yeah. So it would have been almost like impossible. Well, it would have been possible, just it would have taken a lot more time.
Yeah.
So they kept it solely for the Ink and Paint Club scene.
Which I mean was a good call at the end of the day. And there's like a built-in reason for she's gonna change. She's a starlet, she'll change costume. It's fine.
I mean, it's basically the same dress, just less sparkly.
Well, yeah, exactly. So one's like a little pink and sparkly, the other one's just red.
Yep, and to be fair, I think she could basically pull both of those off. she pulled both those costumes off quite well.
Absolutely. So, by the way, fun fact: Jacob? Do you know who does her singing voice?
Amy Irving,
Who is?
Steven Spielberg's ex-wife.
Yes.
Yeah,
She's really good. I always loved this song. I think she did a really good job with it.
Why don't you do right like some other man do? And of course, she enamors the entire club.
Yep, and again, interacting with them too. Like apparently, like, they rotoscoped over. Like there's a number of ways. There's obviously the rehearsal process, and then there's like the whole. They are animating over Amy Irving. Well, I guess the stand-in more so than I forget if Amy Irving just dubbed it or if she actually did the walk around for that scene or not. But the point being, they combined number of elements.
That I don't know, but she was actually married to Steven Spielberg at the time.
Yeah.
At the time the movie was being made, and of course that's not her. Of course, she didn't provide the actual speaking voice. That was provided by an uncredited Kathleen Turner.
Yeah, it's crazy how she was uncredited.
I don't know why she was uncredited. I think she chose to be, but
yeah,
not because she didn't. I mean, she hasn't said anything that she didn't like the movie. I just don't know why.
I don't get it. So, anyway, so after we have a bombastic introduction of the bombshell that is Jessica Rabbit. Eddie is taking pictures of her and with Marvin Acme, who again is the gag man behind all the oversized and ridiculous cartoon props that Wile E. Coyote and all the cartoons have used over the years.
Not before being thrown out by the chimp, by the giant gorilla.
Yep. Who you calling chimp?
I just love that line.
Right.
Don't let me get your peeping face around here again.
So we reveal, we reveal in a hilarious fashion thanks to a little flip book animation gag. What was Marvin Acme and Jessica Rabbit doing behind closed doors, Jacob?
Oh, it was like Dragon. It was horrible.
Yeah,
it's like it was. It's almost
steamy.
It's almost too steamy to describe. Patty cake.
I love how we play it off screen seductively, and
like you can even hear her moans, like, "Oh, Marvin."
God,
and even Eddie's like,
believe it.
Even Eddie's just like, "You gotta be kidding me."
Then we reveal patty cake,
and of course Roger is devastated.
Yeah.
And then it's like obviously it's like we at first think it's like some kind of like euphemism or whatever. No, it's just literally patty cake.
But he's crestfallen and he's very agitated. It seems like he's got an axe to grind. Marvin Acme as he is so upset he bursts through the glass in perfect silhouette in cartoon fashion.
But obviously this is like they did that in an actual window.
Oh yeah. So then we have,
but it actually does bring up a Chekhov's gun later, where like in order to take his mind off of things, they offer him a drink.
Yes, but at least a little steam whistle effect on him because most cartoons can't drink.
It's like the thing is, like this movie is a master setting up like Chekhov's guns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good because it's a mystery, so it kind of has to.
Yeah.
But even in different ways, just like as we keep bringing up Brad Bird, they use the whole buffalo.
They use every part of the buffalo.
Yes, they used every part of the buffalo.
All right, so I want to tell you one of the key sequences of the whole film. The Eddie Valiant's desk. The desk montage is like one of the top tier moments of this film. It's the Alan Silvestri music is utterly just perfect in every note. It takes you on the way the camera moves to, like we get on this emotional journey that's told completely visually and with the music. Just like the little details, the little foreshadows, the things that are going to be important by the third act. I mean, it's the little details like Teddy's side of the desk is completely covered in dust, undisturbed. You have like all the newspaper headlines and clippings Jacob's already mentioned. We have like little details as well. Like we learn that we already established that the Toons love the Valiant brothers. We also show that they went from cops to private detectives, and their father was in the circus, so they're trained circus performers.
Which explains like why their love of the Toons and comedy. They're even clowns on the beat.
Now, I could be wrong. In real life, I heard this somewhere that I think Bob Hoskins is given all the physical stuff he does later in the movie. I think in real life he was actually a trained tumbler.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did some work for the circus. I'm not sure exactly what. I think I also heard he's like a flame swallower or something.
Well, that's the thing. At the very least, it sounds like one of the things he can do is tumble, which is why he's doing all. It sounds like there's a chance he might be doing all those backflips. If that's the case, that's really impressive.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is impressive. I mean, this movie is like very physical, so
Yeah.
it actually kind of helps that would have that kind of experience.
Oh yeah. Okay, let's see.
As you're mentioning that whole desk sequence is like a visual is like an expert is a master class of show don't tell.
Yeah. So we learned the rabbit cacked Marvin Acme.
Yep. Of course, Eddie passed out on the desk drunk again.
Yeah, but again, he's thinking about his brother, and how I can't fault him for that. He's like, yeah, he's dealing with sad stuff.
It was like he was looking at the pictures, which like
Yeah.
of course sent him out in that spiral.
Absolutely. So it's a very sad emotional sequence. So let's see. So we have we go to the Acme warehouse, in which we see a very haunting visuals for Eddie, where he sees like the chalk outline. This is always like another one of those main. This is in the marketing and everything. This is like a perfect image from the movie of just like it's comedic, but again also very very haunting, and just the fact that we have like this chalk outline with a safe and where to hit the victim's head.
And plus, like as they're on their way there, like it highlights that like how close they are to Toontown.
That's what I'm saying. We show how close we are to Toontown, and these are things that are on Eddie's mind.
And of course, like we get the great scene with Yosemite Sam and his biscuits burning.
And again, speaking of Chekhov's gun, we show Yosemite Sam, and later on, a gift from Yosemite Sam is actually going to help save the day. Well,
Yeah,
it was.
although I kind of wished he would have mentioned something like considering that later scene, like I want to thank you again, Mr. Valiant.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but that's the thing. We got to keep him distant from the tunes for reasons.
I know, but it would have been nice.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
I'm not going to call it a missed opportunity, but I'm just saying it would have been nice.
All right, so.
But as you mentioned, like they sees the chalk outline, which of course is absurd because it's again a highlight an exercise in absurdity, but it shows that like it's deadly. Like someone dropped a safe on Marvin Acme's head.
Which again is exactly how his well, with the exception of the heavy object, is the same way his brother died. So it's very haunting for him. I feel terrible for Eddie in this scene. Plus, everyone's kind of making jokes like, "Didn't you used to be Eddie Valiant? Here you're going by Jack Daniels now." Ha ha ha.
Yeah, it is kind of insensitive.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's talk about Judge Doom.
Judge Doom. Gee, to borrow a phrase from Nostalgia Critics' review of this movie. Gee, I wonder who the bad guy is.
Yeah, marketing was always a little off with like, okay, I think it was pretty simple who the bad guy is.
Well, to be fair, the fact that he's the bad guy isn't the major twist of the movie.
Well, you're right about that. So, he's got a great evil design. The wind, you'll notice like these great recurring details in the performance where he's got like a fan blowing on him at all times, so like his cape is flowing. He's got like a cane sword, which is kind of cool. He's got the black hat, but the big thing of the performance, people, Jacob, tell us about the big thing Christopher Lloyd does with his performance.
There's very something unique that he does to highlight and almost foreshadow his role.
Yeah,
something that would later be adopted by Anthony Hopkins during his performance as Hannibal Lecter.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't blink.
Yeah, so he doesn't blink because he wants to give the illusion that that's not a real face.
Oh yeah. And then the thing is, like, as people point out, like the fact that everyone else is like this, like kind of like grounded in reality, but like he's this over the top villain. It's kind of like an early clue that he's actually a tune in disguise.
He's got like a manic energy to him as well in certain places, which again, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, it's again, you have these great little clues that something's off with Judge Doom.
Like everyone else like looks like they could be from the 1940s, but he looks like he's almost out of time.
Yeah.
But of course, like it highlights just like how ruthless he is, like how a guy like him became the judge of Toontown.
On the rewatch, I mean, for this anniversary thing, it really occurred to me, like, okay, there's a really good explanation in the movie for how he became the judge.
He's the one who stole the simoleons.
Exactly, he stole the simoleons, and with the simoleons, he basically funded his big criminal plot and became a judge.
Yep. Like I mean, it's like it's kind of like just two subtle clues if you can remember, like Santino mentioning like he spread a bunch of Somalians around, bought the election, and then
Yeah.
later when Eddie was talking about the one who killed his brother, it's like stole a billion Somalians.
Exactly. So all that tracks really nicely. So again, so Lloyd never blinks because he's got fake eyes.
And of course like highlights his ruthlessness. It's like, and of course like we introduced to the Toon Patrol.
Yeah. By the way, I think this Judge Doom might be the most intimidating character Christopher Lloyd's ever played.
I mean, what other intimidating characters has he really played? I mean, Doc Brown really isn't intimidating. I mean, Reverend Jim's insane.
I
But
mean, the
not
only other time he's really played a villain was that Dennis the Menace movie.
Yeah, and that's again more played for humor there.
Yeah.
And of course he was like also technically a villain in that one episode of The Mandalorian.
I mean, he's played villains, but I'm saying in terms of like evil guys, you know.
Yeah, I mean this is like where he gets to be like it's subtly over the top in a way.
I mean, just speaking of subtle, maybe not so subtle, we bring out the dip.
The dip.
Yeah, so the dip is basically it's a combination of acetate and turpentine. It was basically used to clean animation cells.
Acetone, turpentine, and benzene.
Ah, there you go. That's the actual. Yeah, that's literally what the dip's comprised of. So yeah,
which in reality is what the artists use to clear film cells from animation cells.
So it's the only way to actually kill animation. It's the only way to actually hurt a cartoon character, which I love the logic on that, by the way. I've always loved the logic of the dip, and the dip is just horrifying.
I mean, it is horrifying. I mean, look what he did to that poor shoe.
That poor shoe. And apparently there was one version where they had to cut it out because it was too dark. And they had like the shoe's wife watching as this happened.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't go with that. But like, it's like this shoe just like innocently rubbing up against Eddie, against Judge Doom, just like trying to be friendly. And how does Judge Doom repay it?
Puts on a rubber glove, and he picks it up and he puts it in this giant canister of dip.
I mean, it's literally screaming as it goes into the dip, but you can hear its muffled screams die. And it's like, oh!
Because it's a red shoe, when he removes the glove, it's coated in what looks like blood.
Oh, it's like, oh my god.
And also, here's the thing: this is really surprising. The rewatch too, and you realize that Judge Doom here, he's like knowing who he is. All the stuff that he's saying to Eddie in terms of, I thought you'd be on my side after what happened. After like this rabbit has killed someone, is basically implying in a way similar to your brother. So knowing who he is, that is just really vile what he's saying.
Which is also foreshadowing because not everybody knows what happened to Eddie's brother.
Yeah.
It's like you of all people should understand that. Don't you not understand the magnitude of this situation?
Yeah.
It's like wow, Judge Doom was like rubbing salt into the wound. And of course, like realizing that, knowing that he's a Toon later, just like makes this whole thing almost even more terrifying.
So we've in fact framed Roger Rabbit. So let's talk about our buddy comedy aspect of the film, in which Roger visits Eddie's apartment, and they're now like cuffed together, forced to work together for a bit.
Like Eddie, he tries like Roger goes to Eddie trying to get his like, please, when every Toon knows that when you need help, there's only one place you go, Valiant and Valiant. And of course, when he tried to get into his brother's chair, just to sit down, like, get out of that chair.
I love that moment so much, because you can tell the way Hoskins explodes at him, like that's holy ground. And I love, of course, the dust imprint from the hand. That's great.
It's like one of my favorite subtle details in the movie.
Oh yeah,
it's just like you can see like the handprints that Roger left behind. Like
he's real. The rabbit's real.
It's like I mean, it's just one of my favorite minor details. I mean, I can probably guess that they probably just like dusted it off beforehand and animated his fingerprints over it.
Well, yeah, that's how they do it, Jacob. Yeah,
but it's just like I don't know why. It's just it adds to the illusion,
Right. So the Weasels, of course, from the Toon Patrol, they're also voiced by David Landers.
Like David Lander, Charlie Fleischer also voiced one of them.
Yeah.
June Foray, I think, did one of them.
Maybe.
I mean, June Foray's in the movie, but
well, yeah, she's in the movie. I just don't know if she's like one of the Weasels, but I mean, I guess maybe with the laughing one, I don't know.
All right, let me actually double check on that.
Well, you don't have to look. Let's just say she's in the movie.
Yes.
All right. So, the other thing, so deep down, Eddie does like tunes, which is why he doesn't just what's all this wee business? They just want the rabbit.
and of
But
course, that leads to another great, subtly visual, spectacularly scene, like where the Toon Patrol bursts into the door. It's like, hey fellas, didn't hear you come in.
this is a great setup where it's a very cartoony setup too. Is the fact he's just hiding the cartoon character in the sink as he's doing his laundry.
It's like, when you got in there, Valiant,
My
my
laundry. It's like,
he straight up says my lingerie. Like he says, like my sheesh, Valiant. And of course, another subtle effect that you see in there is like the Toon Patrol wielding real guns.
yeah.
Like like not like cartoon guns like Eddie wields later, but actual actual metal guns. Which like they had to actually like had puppeteers like move around like in rafters above the set.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, ZNK brings up, there is another really good villain character for Christopher. Well, obviously not as evil as Judge Doom, but the Hacker from Cyber Chase. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. He's played villains, but just in terms of like the magnitude of evil villains. But yeah,
Oh yeah,
love the Hacker.
the Hacker is good for that show.
So let's talk about speaking of which, let's fast forward a little bit here. Let's talk about shave and a haircut, one of the great Doom setups.
That is like we have to talk about the entire scene later, but like the before scene, like with Roger and everything. But yeah, but it's like no Toon can resist the shave and a haircut trick. And he just like goes around tapping it with the do.
Shave, and I love he's just getting into it. And the fact that again he knows how tunes think because for obvious reasons. So he's tapping on like shave and a haircut, and once he just crashes through 2 bits,
and then he just grabs Roger.
Yeah, he's about to put him in the dip, but then we pay off the drink, which allows him to escape, and then gets to the Benny the Cab scene. Benny the Cab,
Also voiced by Charles Fleischer.
Or to say like Elton John, Benny the Cab. Yeah, so Benny Cab, of course, a wonderful kind of cabbie voice by Charles Fleischer. It's always funny every time I see Scrooged. I keep thinking the cab driver is Charles Fleischer because of this movie, but it's not.
Charles Fleischer, who has actually gone to revoice these, because like I think Benny the Cab actually guest starred in an episode of House of Mouse, and then Charles Fleischer actually came back to voice him.
Cool. So yeah, the way they shot this is there's an actual go-kart that Bob Hoskins. Well, there's a steering wheel. There's a little guy. Well, not a little. There's a man in the back of the go-kart who's actually driving it, and they're basically painting over it. In the aftermath, they're kind of rotoscoping the steering wheel and they're painting over the little go-kart so it looks like Benny.
And there are actually a couple scenes where Eddie's actually animated in, considering that would have been dangerous to have Bob Hoskins in there.
Yeah.
And of course, the great pull the lever.
What lever? This lever, stupid.
I love that gag.
Like, hey, what do you call it? The middle of a song?
Oh, gee, I don't know. A bridge.
It's a great sequence. Yeah, it's why it has a theme park ride too. It's a really good sequence.
It is. It is great.
People love that cab.
I mean, he's a great character. I mean, you don't see him much in the movie.
Yeah.
And you even get to see himself driving a car later.
Which is really absurd and funny when you think about it.
He's a car driving a car.
Oh, God, now if only Pixar could have seen that. Could have seen that clip. Now that one works.
Yeah, it's like, I wonder if, it's like, even though, funnily enough, Benny driving a car raises less questions than Cars does.
Yeah. That's true. All right, so after this Benny scene, we get to the movie theater scene, which to me is the most pivotal character scene in the entire film. We got to talk about the movie theater scene
with the scene where Eddie opens up to Roger about what happened to his brother.
Because Roger's like, "You hate me." He says, "I don't." He's on like basically. I'm sorry, I'm jumping forward a little bit here. Roger asks, like, "What turned you into such a sourpuss, Eddie?"
Oh, mainly because like he was the only one in the theater not laughing at the Goofy short.
Yeah.
Which, funnily enough, would have actually come out 2 years later in real time. It came out in 49 instead of 47.
Yeah. Well, the reason they went with that too is they were trying to find like the zaniest Disney cartoon roughly around that era that they could. So that was the only one they could really find that would have like cartoony like Warner Brothers as shenanigans for Disney. So
And they went with goofy gymnastics.
yep. All right. So in this scene, it's such an earned scene. We've gotten a lot of laughs out of the comedy duo of these two paired together on the run and everything. So it's a lot. We've earned a lot of laughs, but it's a lot of laughs, and we've earned like a really great. It facilitates this big moment in the Eddie Valiant arc, in which he tells the story of the night Teddy died, and it's gripping. It's I love how we're panning in. You can tell it's a painful story for him. It's the way Hoskins performs this is just utterly wonderful. We learned there was a bank robbery in which the guy ran into Toontown and he dropped a piano on them from 15 stories up and broke his arm. But Teddy didn't stand a chance, and just the haunted quality in which he says he was standing over me, laughing with those burning red eyes and that high, squeaky voice.
Now, basically, everything he says in that scene pays off later in some way.
Absolutely. So it's a great. You understand Eddie completely in that moment as to where his trauma comes from. We've already kind of had an inkling as to what happened, thanks to Dolores. So we've already kind of knew it, but hearing him say it, and it really shows growth on him. He's telling Roger this, and Roger he respects that pain where he's coming from. He's like, "No wonder you hate me," and then Eddie's like he's the closest he's getting to an apology. I'm sorry, I yanked on yours all the times. Yes, all the times.
Like, apology accepted.
Yeah, of course, a little before we. Okay, so I guess to rewind a little bit here because we're jumping around a little bit here.
Yeah.
So Jessica Rabbit paid Eddie a visit.
Yeah.
Got him in hot water with Dolores.
Like, of course. It's like you know how hard it is being a woman looking the way I do.
You don't know how hard it is being a man looking at a woman like you.
Looking at a woman looking the way you do.
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Which is probably Jessica's most famous line in the movie.
It's a poster line for you.
Like, I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Yeah.
I think it was actually shortlisted for the AFI most memorable film lines.
So, interesting fact. So this scene, it's interesting because I'm of two minds about the scene. So the deleted scene of the film, the pig scene,
Yeah.
links into this scene. So the idea is that Eddie, after the probate scene, the idea he was looking for the will, and he went to Jessica's dressing room, and basically he got knocked out by the grill again. And there was a scene, but here's the thing: it was like a weird day and night shift. But I guess you have to make the assumption it took him a while to get there. So he is, so Eddie. He comes to and he's chatting with Judge Doom and Jessica Rabbit. Basically, he's still accusing her. So if you think about it, it's a bit of a. This is back when I imagine to the original version of the script in which it was a little. They were kind of trying to make you think like Baby Herman and Jessica Rabbit were suspects, or mainly Jessica Rabbit was the main suspect, which kind of translates in the film as it stands. Like she was the suspect before Judge Doom fully, was confirmed. Now, here's the thing. So basically, the scene goes on to he's saying he's looking for Arvin Acme's will, which basically puts the hunt on for the will. And Judge Doom says, like, no, we're going to take care of him downtown. He thinks, okay, I'm going to talk to my cop buddies. I'll get out of this. Like, no, you're going to Toontown. And it fills Eddie Valiant with fear. The weasels drop him off in Toontown. The next morning, he comes to with a pig on his head. They painted like an animated pig head on him, which freaked them out. And it ran all the way all the way home. So here's the problem I have with this. It's a great scene, and it does explain. Like he goes to the shower, and he has like some dip or turpentine or the acetate turpentine blend, benzene thing. He washed the pig down. It was like the first scene animated, in fact. He washed that down the drain. That's why he's coming out of the shower when Jessica enters. So otherwise, if you look in the movie as it stands, it's a bit of a choppy edit if you really think about it. But here's the thing. I think it was a smart thing to edit out of the movie for the following reason.
Yeah.
If Eddie went to Toontown to be tortured and then came out of it and just ran all the way home as like a gag, I think it would undercut the power of he goes to Toontown in the third act, which is the place that's traumatized. And I'm saying having him go there twice, it might have undercut it. So having him just go there once as it stands in the film as is, I think was the right call.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that one. It's like it wouldn't have made. Honestly, it also doesn't make much sense if you just have that scene on its. If you just watch that scene on its own, it's fine. But in the context of the movie, it wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, and of course, that's why you have like him have like, where are you going? Back to the office. They actually had him like dub that over the scene.
Yeah, and you can tell that's very much them. Like, okay, so we took that scene out, so we're just kind of like kind of filling in a little bit there. And yeah, that thing. It's like you think like, man, she just went to the office right after him there.
Yeah. And of course, speaking of Baby Herman, we haven't really even talked much about him.
Well, Baby Herman, when you look at it, Baby Herman really just has one scene in the movie. It's a fun scene. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, he does have the scene later where he's in front of Valley and Eddie's office, where he actually stands up for Roger.
Well, no, sorry, that was the scene I really meant, aside from the obvious scene, which we have, like the opening of the movie scene. But the scene between just him and Eddie's is one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of nice. Just as like he may like be frustrated with Roger, but he considers him like a good friend and would obviously never think that he would murder anybody.
Yeah, his co-star and all. Like the idea is that Roger Rabbit and Baby Herman are a package deal in which they do all their cartoons together, so they are friends, or at the very least, they're work buddies.
Yeah, like vitriolic at most.
Yeah.
Like they work well together at least, and like he's a good friend of mine. He would never commit murder.
Of course, he's harassing the poor lady, has to wheel him around and everything, but he's probably paying her a king's ransom.
It's like which is funny because but you know what's actually kind of funny? Like they actually did retain one line from the book into the movie, and Baby Herman actually was one of the characters that did make it back to the movie.
Yeah,
and like the lines like the thing is, I got a 50-year-old lust and a 3-year-old dinky. And that's actually a line that's adapted from the book. Like one of the few lines actually that came from the book itself. Cool. Funnily enough. But yeah, back to like the office scene. Like,
actually, Z and K brings up something real quick here.
Yeah,
the pighead scene was also meant to have the funeral scene before. Yes, that was another thing too. That they apparently, I guess, they didn't finish animating that scene, but I did hear about that scene. The funeral scene is saying Marvin Atkins is going to have a funeral.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of upsetting that they didn't have that, but ultimately, I guess they probably wouldn't have added much to the overall movie.
Actually, the movie has a really good runtime, so I don't think it might have added on to it. So,
it's like I don't know. I mean, we'll never know, and never got done.
Yeah,
they haven't shown any behind the scenes stuff.
It's a shame they didn't show like the storyboarded scene for that or not. Yeah, it's kind of a shame, but
maybe it never made it past that stage.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. So after the pig scene, I was like, Eddie, I caught you with your pants down.
Or Z and K mentioned the extra line from the dabbling in watercolors. Are you, Eddie?
That is a really good line.
I'm honestly believing might have actually inspired like the initial attempt at Ralph Bakshi's Cool World.
Huh. Because I know Cool World was very much an imitator of Roger Rabbit. So
yeah, but what I mean is like the original version of like what Cool World was originally supposed to be. I mean, which I'll explain later, I guess.
Okay.
But anyway, Jessica comes in pleading both her innocence and Roger's.
Yeah.
But honestly, kind of in Eddie's view, it kind of makes her more suspicious.
One of the funniest gags, by the way, with Jessica Rabbit, with like the way she's animated is, they did like a reverse gravity thing. So every time she moves, her breasts they bounce upward. So there's this gag where Eddie
they bounce up instead of down.
Yeah, but here's the gag. So Eddie, when he's pulling his pants up after they fall down, this Bob Hoskins was so brilliant here. This might have been an improv they can add it in there after. I think that's what happened, where he lifts after he bends down and pulls pants up, and he goes up his head. It's her. He's sorry.
And of course, not to mention the whole like boing sound effect that happens when she presses up against him.
Yeah, and then of course later on we have like the booby trap gag, which is priceless.
I love that good when the weasel was like obviously doing it just for perversive purposes.
Yeah, he's frisking her not a nice way.
Yeah, and then it's
Parent trap.
And it's kind of like implied that it's probably happened a couple times. Like, yeah, that's happened before.
Yeah, we're calling out old Hollywood.
And she's like, and of course, as you mentioned, the pun, nice booby trap.
Good. Okay. So anyway, so of course Eddie and Dolores, it seems like the leads turned up dry. Anyway, then basically we have like a lot of the other stuff that happens in the movie.
Yes,
So
mentioned Cloverleaf being having the highest bid for Toontown.
yeah, the red car was like a nice. I like how we introduced the red car in a charming bit there, where it's kind of like Eddie, how he gets around. He kind of hitches a ride on the back, and he helps the kids get on the
and
fender
also
of the thing.
and also thanks him for the cigarettes.
Yep, 40s.
Yep, 40s. Which is it's actually kind of interesting considering the behind the scenes stuff. Like this actually kind of owes its existence to like an unmade third Chinatown movie.
Yeah, Chinatown was a huge influence on it. So yeah.
Like I mean, that's almost like the like one of the more recent examples of a successful film noir hard-boiled detective story.
Yeah. So let's see. So we return the tune. Okay, so essentially we return the Toontown because Jessica seems to, after the editing scene with Marvin Acme, started with R.K. Maroon,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. Which I love that they've always got a kick out of it because the editors and the fact this movie won for editing. I would love to think they played this clip during that scene. Just like, are you gonna tell me everything? And the parts I don't like, I'm just gonna edit out. As he puts his tie in like a little editing moviola thing.
It's like, of course it actually, and of course that scene even highlights like Marvin, like R.K. Maroon's like he just wanted to sell his studio. He didn't want to see the tunes get killed.
Yep, and then of course he's right before he says freeway, and there's this really cool shot if you look at it. Like the gun is reflected on the gun on the poster, and bam, Marvin Acme gets. Sorry, I keep saying Acme because they're both kind of tied into each other plot wise. R.K. Maroon gets in the back.
It's like and of course R.K. Maroon actually reveals the whole reason why the whole thing with Marvin in the first place.
Yeah,
it's like he had the opportunity to sell his studio, but wouldn't do it unless Acme sold his studio, which obviously Acme didn't want to do.
Yeah, of course he needs. We're going to find out the owner of Cloverleaf needs Acme Studio for a very important reason.
Of course.
So,
which brings me like, you used me for land development.
Exactly. Okay, so so seemingly Jessica is kind of framed to be the trigger, is kind of the trigger man here, and she runs off, and Roger is knocked out of the frying pan, put in the trunk, so
he wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah, so he wouldn't get hurt. So Eddie Chase goes to Toontown. We have this wonderful dramatic moment that would have been undercut had we kept the pig scene in here, where he goes to the tunnel and he stops. He gets out of the car and he goes for the gun that Yosemite Sam gave him as a thank you gift.
Thank you for getting me out of the Hooskow, Yosemite Sam.
Yep, and we have the 6 dumb bullets. Pat Buttram voicing at least the most, if not the majority.
Like, I ain't seen you nigh on to 5 years. Where you been?
Drunk.
We're feeling frisky tonight, fellas.
Yeah, and they all say yes, and I love how they jump in the barrel, and then we have this beautiful little bit here where he's about to take a swig in kind of a cowboy way, but then he kind of stops, and he's thinking of like, this is for my brother to a degree.
And not only does he just shoot the bottle, he pours out the liquor before shooting.
I love that. I love that he pours it out. I think that's a signifying bit there. So, I'm getting over my trauma, facing my fear. I'm not gonna numb myself.
You can say he quit the wild turkey, cold turkey.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Anyway, so he tossed in the air the Native American bullets.
It's like fires and like pulls out this massive axe to break the bottle with.
I love these bullets. I wish we saw more of them, but I understand why we couldn't really. Otherwise, the movie be over.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to Toontown, and so this is really fascinating because the whole movie's been predicated on we have animated characters in our world, but now we're going to flip it and just see how odd that's going to look. Where we have like one human character in an entirely toon world.
And of course, it seems almost like ominous. Like the music's like building up this tense moment.
So it sounds like what's inside the Joker's head 24/7. Smile, darling, yes, smile.
But yeah, it's like from the tense music to smile, darn you, smile.
But again, I love that it's like to disarm you, and that's the danger of Toontown. Where again, for a human, it's very dangerous. For a Toon, it's Shangri-La.
It's like it's like it's like it's like Eden basically. It's like it's paradise.
Yeah, it's a nice subtle thing where you notice there's like they're animating some shading on Bob Hoskins, so like they can
But
you can basically integrate into the effect better.
And to be fair, even then, like we say it's like Shangri-La and paradise, but even then, it's like there seems to still be like a lot of issues going on in Toontown, regardless.
True.
It's like, and not to mention like the cavalcade of cameos.
Oh yeah.
It's like we get to see obviously a lot of them Disney, considering who made the movie, but like we get to see like Mr. Toad, the Seven Dwarfs. We get to see like all kinds of different Easter eggs in the movie too.
Alice in Wonderland.
Yep, which is I think was Spielberg's idea.
Yeah.
It's like Porky's all beef sausage.
Oh, by the way, Spielberg. There's one gag in the movie that Spielberg really loved. He insisted it be kept in there. The probate scene. I know we kind of glazed over it, but this is a brief gag where.
Oh yeah, check the probate. My Uncle Thumper, he had a big probate. He had to take these big pills and drink lots of
Not
water.
prostate, you idiot! Probate. So yeah, that was pitched. Basically, Spielberg said, "You know what? The exposition here is going to lose the audience. We need kind of a gag here." And then one of the writers on the whim just kind of pitched like, "Okay, what if he said they literally just laid out the exact line like right there in the room for him? He says, yes, that's great. You have to put that in the movie."
Check the probate.
That was Spielberg's edition.
Spielberg's like, as we've mentioned before, like when we talk about Tiny Toons and Animaniacs, Spielberg's a pretty good gag man.
He was. I mean, that's the thing. When he's there and he's in the room, like OG Animaniacs, he was there.
Yep. Like and he's not just giving them memos.
Yeah. We got a memo. All right.
Yep.
So, point being, we're in Toontown. We're having some great interactions there. Of course, Eddie, he's falling from Droopy's taking him up in the elevator, which is squashing and stretching him.
And instead of like his usual voice actor at the time, Richard Williams actually provided the voice of Droopy.
Yeah.
Instead of like, I think at the time it wasn't like Corey Burton who was the voice of him at the time. Because that's who voiced him in the shorts. I think it was Corey Burton.
I don't know. It's
either way, it was Richard Williams that voiced him in the movie.
Yeah. Okay. So
your floor, sir. Have a good day, sir.
And he falls, and he's like hanging on the flagpole. And Tweety Bird's a little mean to him. I love how he's like he's like greeting Tweety like an old friend, like, "Hey, Tweety."
It's like you can even like see a little smile on his face.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's something kind of nice there, but then Tweety's like just letting him off the flagpole. It's like, oh.
But of course, but we skipped the reason why he's off the flagpole in the first place.
Why?
Like because he tailed Jessica to her apartment, or so he thought.
Yeah, it's not Jessica; it's a horn dog.
It's like Lena Hyena. Oh man! Woo! Basically, now that's like classic Tex Avery stuff right there.
Exactly. It's insanely Tex Avery stuff.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, specifically, like as like apparently it was like inspired by the granny from Red Hot Riding Hood.
Yeah, that tracks.
It's like Lena Hyena, of course, like June Foray provided the voice of it.
Jessica Rabbit has a lot of like the Red Hot Riding Hood built in there.
Yeah, and it's unknown how Lena Hyena fits into all this, but she's like she just instantly sees Eddie like, oh man!
Yep. Okay. It's great. It's a fun misdirect.
Yep, and chases Eddie until he falls, which leads to one of the other famous scenes into the movie.
Yeah, so as in free fall, we have like a gobsmack, like something's never going to happen again. You have Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse skydiving together.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like I've read so many comments saying that when they were younger, people didn't understand like how monumental that scene actually was. It's like seeing these two icons of animation on the same scene. Like they're like, why didn't they do that more often? And when they get older, they're like, it was a miracle that this happened in the first place.
And they had to make sure that Mickey didn't do the double cross thing here, where it's like, oh gee, Bugs, Bugs has a spare. It's like, I don't think you want it. It's like, yes, I want it. Gives him the spare. There he goes. It's like, it's a spare tire. It's like, oh, Bugs.
Oh, poor fella. Yeah, ain't I a stinker?
It's just great.
And of course, Mel Blanc and doing the voice of Bugs once again.
Yeah.
It's like, and of course, they had to put in the classic "and I a stinker" line.
Yep.
Like, and to be fair, they could have also given him spare bowling pins too.
True.
If you think about it, instead of a spare tire. I just love this whole thing. Like, he did ask for a spare. He didn't say a spare what.
Yeah. True. So anyway, so he falls. He's caught by Leonina, and basically Toon Logic. He like rips off like the lines on the road. And he directs her into a brick wall.
Toons gets him every time.
And suddenly it's nighttime, and then we enter our big set piece here. As he goes down an alley, and we have like the gag with his shadow, which like gives him tight. It's really fun.
Dick Tracy.
Yep, Dick. Yeah. So let's see. Anyways, then of course we reveal Jessica Rabbit's not the bad guy, and she's on for Team Eddie here, and they're driving, and they end up hitching a ride with Benny the cab, going back to the Acme warehouse.
Z and K says this to say, like, the frame of Mickey and Bugs should be in a movie museum.
Belongs in a museum.
Yes. So do you. Anyway.
All right, so we have
and of course, like it's like I got. And of course, she explains what happened to Rudge. Like, I hit him on the head with a frying pan, hit him in the trunk, so he wouldn't get hurt.
Makes perfect sense. What do you see in that guy? He makes me laugh.
But of course, we actually see like Roger actually got out of the trunk. He's like, "Why don't you? We're not going anywhere in my car. Let's take yours." Eddie, looks like someone already did. Roger, it indicates early on that Roger's not very good at driving.
Nope.
It's like a better lover than a driver, huh? You better believe it, Buster.
All right, so they're driving. Benny gives him a ride, and as they seemingly they're in the clear, and then Judge Doom.
The key is he's after he accidentally sticks out his thumb.
Yes, after he accidentally sticks out his thumb, they they hitch a ride, and they are basically they're seemingly in the clear, and then Judge Doom dips out the spills the dip on the road, and Benny's like he gets like a world class hot foot on the tires, and they crash. It's like, oh, poor Benny, like it's a big old crash.
He crashes into a light pole, and like either like he pretends to I think he pretends to be knocked out. I don't think he pretended to be dead, just knocked out.
Just knocked out. Yeah.
But obviously he's okay, but he's just like pretending so they don't dip him even more. Most likely.
Yeah. And Roger comes by and he drives the car.
Eddie's car, which is completely totaled.
Yeah.
Like he did a number on Toontown, which I'm sure will probably be fine by the next day.
Yeah.
But of course, Eddie's car is just like completely tattered, metal pieces flying everywhere, sparks flying, and of course, Benny just like tiptoes because his feet are his wheels are in pain, and just gets into the driver's seat himself and drives away.
Yeah.
Just the absurd image of a car driving another car.
All right, so let's talk about the big warehouse scene. So we have our climax for the film here, like our big set piece at the very end here. We exposit the whole freeway plan in which Judge Doom is behind Cloverleaf. He's bought the red car to dismantle it, and then basically going to he's built this giant machine that sprays dip. Oh my God, it's dip!
Which is one of the few times she raises her voice at that rate.
Exactly.
And of course, basically, Judge Doom's plan is revealed to be a massive land development scheme.
Yeah.
Like, you used me for land development.
All right, we got it. You already used it. Yeah, for land development. Exactly.
So it's like to build a freeway, like his entire life's like, what the hell's a freeway? It's like, of course, you like vision.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
No. So anyway, yes, the plan is basically use this giant device to wipe out Toontown, to destroy and make room for the freeway.
Yep, like tire salons, cheap hotels, restaurants making rapidly prepared food, and billboards as
high as the eye can see.
My God,
it'll be beautiful.
Yeah, it's like, and to be fair, in the 1940s, that would sound pretty outrageous.
Yeah, that
I mean, I
line.
mean, I mean, freeways already did exist technically, but that whole idea would sound outlandish.
The delivery on Lloyd is just perfect in that moment too. Is my God, it'll be beautiful.
Yes, like he doesn't get it. I mean, I know like people obviously recognize him and him as like I don't think he gets enough like recognition as like one of cinema's greatest villains.
Yep. Okay, so Eddie basically, as Judge Doom seemingly loses an eye, he's distracted. Eddie
At-
does his
at-
tumbling.
like after tripping like a cartoon on a bunch of eyes that are spilled onto the ground.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like it happens like within like a couple seconds, so you might miss it. But you're like, wait a minute, why did he trip like that?
And also earlier in the movie, you'll notice he was backing away when the dip spilled on the floor.
But it's kind of but yeah, that part is actually kind of disguised by the fact that the other patrons are backing away from it too.
Yeah.
But it isn't. But that's not something when I remember when I rewatched it for the second time after knowing who Judge Doom was like, so that's why he backed away from the dip.
Exactly. All right, so anyways, of course, Eddie does his tumbling comedy act, which literally it knocks the weasels dead. It's so funny.
Of course.
I don't know. That don't rhyme with walls. No, but this does.
Boom! Kicks him in the crotch. And he's the only one to actually die by dip. And if you notice, he doesn't lose his ghost. So that means the dip literally erases them as soul and all.
Yeah, exactly. He's double dead.
It's like DED dead.
Dead.
So yeah, it's like so of course
The big scene. Let's talk about oh my God, I think the most well performed scene.
Well, that and the fact that the music is actually "Merry-Go-Round Broke Down," which is of course the famous Looney Tunes theme.
Well, yeah, Jacob said that. Yes, that's great.
I just wanted to mention that, but like,
Oh yeah,
and of course when Judge Doom finally confronts Eddie Valiant once and for all.
yep. So we have the reveal after they get into a fight. It's pretty cool, and of course Eddie's like he's like using a lot of really cool things here. He's using like the giant magnet, and then he's using like a little hole to get out of the giant magnet.
The portable hole.
Yeah, the portable. That's my favorite thing. The whole movie. I love the portable hole.
I would love to have a real life portable hole.
Yeah, me too.
Like he uses, and I just love the clever way he uses that too. Like he uses it to basically clip through the magnet.
I love that we tried to have a sword fight, but he had the Sinatra sword.
Wicked witchcraft.
Anyway, anyways, Judge Doom,
he holds he holds a barrel of glue above his head, in which Judge Doom punches.
Yes, and he punches into the steamroller it's going, and he seemingly very graphically is being killed and is being completely steamrolled over, and we look away when it gets to his head, and then egad, Eddie, look, as he points with his ear, he's alive, but he's all flat and cartoony.
It's like, holy smokes, he's a toon.
Not just any tune. And then as he reinflates himself, we have the eyes pop out. We have the amazing reveal of the movie. So again, folks, we knew he was the bad guy. We didn't know he was this bad guy.
Remember me, Eddie? When I killed your brother, I talked just like this.
So this scene, I feel, has Bob Hoskins' best performance, and he doesn't even say a word.
It's like the sheer look of terror on his face.
I love every time I watch this movie. I just go gaga for that moment where he is led. Don't worry, obviously Christopher Lloyd side of it's fantastic, but still, just seeing Hoskins and the cold sweat and the fear and the trauma just on his face in this, from a distance, silly kids movie, but in reality, far much more.
This movie is like ostensibly for kids. It's like kids are like an audience member, but this is more for like teenagers and adults.
Exactly. Just seeing this thing. Just like this, and then the eyes, he's staring literal daggers at him.
Oh yeah, it's like anybody would be scared out of their wits with this.
It's just such palpable fear in there. Like, and if this was Tim Curry, people would have to give out diapers for this movie. That was Tim Curry doing this.
I can only imagine what Tim Curry's would have been like. In an alternate universe, we did get Tim Curry in this role.
Yep, one section of the multiverse. Yeah,
It's like, although who knows? Maybe in that universe we didn't get Bob Hoskins as Eddie Valiant.
fair point.
So it's like,
So
so who would have been who? So who would have been? So who's better off in that regard?
right, okay.
but either way, but totally his performance and like the sheer look of absolute terror on Eddie's face, like this is the tune that killed my brother.
Yep,
And as you point out, he didn't say a word. Like like Bob Hoskins totally should have gotten the Best Actor nomination for this movie.
you should have got Globes and stuff, but you're right. He should have got the nomination.
Yeah, he totally should have.
So yeah, he So then we have then we have round two of the fight here, where essentially Doom can remove his gloves and he's going full cartoon here, whereas like he's hitting with giant anvils and buzzsaws.
The kids' gloves are off.
Exactly.
It's like, and the thing is, remember, a tune can only do these things if they think they're funny.
Oof.
That means in his own twisted way, Judge Doom thinks this is hilarious.
Yeah.
He thinks that this entire
We probably should mention too.
Yeah.
I just remember we should have mentioned the whole handcuff thing.
Oh yeah, you mean the handcuff scene from earlier?
Yeah. So just real briefly,
the scene we have literally right in front of us.
I know that's the thing. We really should mention it. So yeah. Trying to.
All right, let's talk about it.
As real quick, I just want to mention that in our comedy setup, the whole reason Roger and Eddie were kind of like paired up and buddied up was that Roger, as Eddie Valiant, you're coming with me, as like a gag, he handcuffed him. And I don't have any keys for these cuffs, which is why they went to Dolores to try and get the cuffs off. And while trying to saw through them, he's just like, hold still. He holds like, is this better when he holds like the little wooden crate they're balanced on? He realizes he just removed his hand from the cuff. Do you mean to tell me you could have gotten your hand out of there at any time? And then what does he say?
He's like, not at any time, only when it was funny.
Cartoon logic.
Which seems like a gag up front, but actually becomes a major Chekhov's gun. It's like, only when it was funny.
Yep, and Z&K points at, you mean you could have mentioned that handcuff scene at any time?
Yeah, well, Z&K, only when we forgot about it.
True.
Only when it was funny.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, it's like basically, yeah, it's like it plays up a bunch of rules, like, and it even like highlights that Roger, how important making people laugh is to Roger. But
yeah, so
back to the climactic scene, like Doom thinks the entire interaction is funny.
He loves the irony of the situation. He loves, I'm going to kill the other Valiant brother right now.
Yep, and get away with it too.
Yep.
It's like, but of course, like, and of course, being a cartoon, he's now like bound to be over the top and dramatic as he is.
So we pay off Chekhov's mallet.
Exactly. It's like where Eddie uses the mallet to turn the nozzle of the dip machine.
Yeah, so essentially what he does, it's a subtle detail, was the mechanism and how it works. He hits like the dial on the back, which basically is like the pressure release valve. So the whole thing exits. That's why Jessica and Roger, like, they're not really threatened by a giant hose is coming out, because basically he depleted the whole machine of all the dip, as it sprayed out the back right at Doom, and he boils, basically he melts like the Wicked Witch of the West. Which, by the way, that yellow smoke you're seeing, that's old school toxic Hollywood smoke. So that's really dangerous.
It's like, well, it kind of makes sense considering he's like a being of ink and paint, and he's being entirely melted at once.
He dies like the shoe, man. That's an earned death. He killed that poor little shoe. He's gonna die like that poor little shoe.
And those old chemicals and paints are actually quite toxic. So
yeah, that's the thing. So and when they were actually shooting this scene, it was a little, it was actually a little dangerous when they did the smoke effect.
The actual chemicals themselves, like turpentine, acetone, and benzene, those could actually be quite toxic.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, but yeah, I can. Like, and they even reference the Wicked Witch that was like, I'm melting. Ah!
So it was always an eerie detail that it absolutely was a mask. So yeah, we never saw Doom's true cartoon form. I have to assume it was yellow with red eyes, but
apparently a comic book or graphic novel, like follow-up, kind of like showed what he actually did look like. But I haven't seen any pictures.
I heard about that, Jay, but I always meant to look into it, but I never found it.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. One thing we do know is that it was kind of deleted, but as far as I'm concerned, it's canon.
Yeah.
He is the man who killed Bambi's mom.
Yeah, that's actually like deleted from the theater scene,
Yeah.
wasn't it? He also killed Bambi's mother.
I don't know if they deleted. That makes sense though. If they did, if they were going to put in any scene, it probably would have been that scene. So.
Yeah, I mean, for all we know, he was man.
He was a man. Yes, man.
Yes, man.
Who killed Bambi's mom? All right, so we saved the day, and we
apparently I read in like some dubs when they like did the whole melting thing, like instead of like maintaining his like higher pitched voice, his voice actually got like more deeper as he died, like adding like kind of like a demonic sense to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, but yeah, like he basically hoist by his own petard, like killed by his very own creation in a way.
Yeah.
So,
which it is an insanely good way to kill a Toon character, by the way, with the indestructible tunes, the dip.
Yep, like he found a way. You can say he found a way to kill Toons, and that means he's not exempt from that. So,
yeah.
So he ended up being killed by his own creation, but basically tying it into Frankenstein in a way. But anyway, never mind. But after washing away the dip, and of course, like Roger and Jessica embracing for real, finally, all the tunes from the movie come in and wonder just who was that masked man. Well,
I have no idea who it was, Jacob.
I know. I'm saying they all wonder who was that masked man.
Yeah.
It's like I'll tell you.
He wasn't a duck. He wasn't a rabbit.
Or a dog. Or a little one boy. Or a pussy. So I was like, we never know exactly who Judge Doom was, and do you think that actually makes him a bit scarier in a way?
Yeah, no, I think the ambiguity absolutely makes it makes it scary, but as an audience member, it's like, oh man, I want to know what he looked like, but we'll never know. And he had that rubber mask, but still, it's terrifying. What we don't know, it's like the Joker logic. What we don't know makes it even better.
Yeah, but of course, we finally learn what actually happened to the will.
Yes, Marvin Acme wrote his will in disappearing ink, but not just disappearing ink. Disappearing, reappearing ink. So it was pure coincidence. It finally reappears.
It's like, and of course, like it was like that innocuous little piece of paper that Roger wrote his love letter on.
Yep.
It's like, dear Jessica, how do I love you? Let me count the ways. I, Marvin Acme, sound mind body. It's the will. And then it's like I leave Toontown to those lovable characters, the Toons. Which is a good way to, which is obviously. And
well, we end the movie on a kiss, Jacob. Let's not sugarcoat that. We ended on a kiss, but not the kiss you're thinking of.
But no, like basically Roger tries to like be like, it's like, you're not gonna be a sour person anymore, Eddie. Like, put her there, pal. And then he then does the joy buzzer, which is brought up several times. Like, everyone's like, does this answer your question? And plants a kiss on Roger.
Yeah.
Which is a callback to when Roger did it earlier, of course. And of course, as everyone's walking away, and Jessica offers to make Roger some carrot cake.
Yeah. All
the Toons join harmony and sing "Smile, darn ya, smile."
Yep, Porky Pig is going to usher everyone out. He comes up with the B2B. That's all, folks.
And of course, Tinkerbell closes it off.
That was a thing. It's funny. I think they mentioned that was to make Michael Eisner happy. He's like, no, we can't end it on Porky Pig. We got.
And actually, the whole story was like, I actually remember the story. It's like it was originally just Porky doing that, but then like Michael Eisner was like, we're really ending this with a Warner cartoon. But so they added Tinkerbell to placate him.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair though. It's like, they're gonna end that. Might as well use both.
Yep, it's only fair. And as they all walk up to the sunset of Toontown, Porky Pig basically gives us his most iconic line, with Mel Blanc basically having the last line of the movie.
Z&K points out, but Tink doesn't exist yet. Michael Eisner, who cares? We don't care.
Well, to be fair, the Penguin Waiters didn't either, but didn't exist at this point either, considering.
Well, you know what it might be? It might be that they're between gigs, like they haven't landed the big role yet. They're around though,
and like they exist, but they didn't see them. There's like the other two actors trying to get parts. Like remember like the cattle call earlier in the movie.
Z&K points out a kiss so famous. It ended the kiss montage of the great movie, right? That's a great pull, Z&K. Yes, it did.
Oh, yeah. One of the most iconic kisses in film history, you could say.
Yep. Like, move over from here to eternity.
Like, we have Roger Rabbit and Eddie Valiant.
Yeah, there's a kiss for the ages for you.
Exactly. It's symbolic.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's like, this movie is definitely a wild ride. And I'm not saying that just because Mr. Toad's in this.
Yeah.
It's like, this movie is definitely unlike anything that came before, and basically unlike anything that has come out since. This movie, you could almost say, is like basically one of a kind.
Most definitely.
I mean, other movies have done the live action with animation thing before and after, but I don't think any of them has ever achieved it as good as well as basically as well as this movie. Obviously, people love Space Jam, but I don't think that even holds a candle to this. What do you think?
Oh, well, yeah, of course. No, there's been a lot of imitations of Roger Rabbit. And at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to a lot of things we talked about already, where it's like, like we're not buying that the actors are like actually like as much as we did with Hoskins and the animated characters, you have these interacting with them, that there's that all the little touches that these are actually happening. I mean, from a story context, but also just from an acting perspective. But he's like, you buy that he's in the scene with these characters. He's like fully committing, and he's doing all the homework and the legwork and like the mime work and making it happen, which all those other movies are really lacking. And beyond that too, it's also just kind of like the pathos of the story. Like if we're going to have like man and cartoon interact, or we're going to have something important to say about it, which we do here with Eddie Valiant and Spades.
Exactly. Like this movie does have the novelty of the novelty, but it backs it up with the great story.
I mean, it's interesting when you think about it. Roger Rabbit is born from the idea of like the ads in which we have like the cartoon characters interacting with live people, in which Space Jam has an identical origin, only that one's just made purely commercial, though. Like that's purely commercial versus a story coming out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, this movie backs it up. Like, I mean, this movie could have gotten away with just the novelty of it and everything. Just look at how well the special effects are pulled off. But I honestly don't think it would have been as beloved as it is, even with the special effects, if it didn't have the great pathos, the great story, and everything behind it. And that's what makes this movie special.
Agreed.
And that's why people are still like talking about it so many years later.
Yeah.
Why it's an icon of cinema.
Yep.
I mean, what else can we say about this movie? I mean, it's basically one of the greatest it's basically the greatest live action animation hybrid ever made.
That's true.
I mean, Mary Poppins is a great movie too, but it's not exactly an animation hybrid except for that one scene.
Exactly. So Mary Poppins is more of a testing ground than anything.
Exactly. Still a fantastic movie, though.
And even so, Mary Poppins did not move the camera. That was like the big rule that he broke on. This one was like, we're going to move the camera through the scenes with animated characters. And he was like, God, everyone was telling like, you can't do that. Well, like what? Like, what do you mean? Like Richard Williams, like I think facilitated by saying like an answer to this question, like you can't move the camera through an animated scene. Well, yeah, you can. You're just lazy if you don't. It's the only reason they haven't done it before. So they didn't want to have to move it around.
I mean, he did. He basically did say it's basically twice the work, but yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
That's the talent. Everyone said this movie was like a monster to make. There were so many times that they figured it wouldn't even get off the ground. They wouldn't make it on time. It was going over budget. They were worried that it wouldn't actually be released. And so it's actually, so in all ways, this movie is a miracle in multiple ways. The fact that it came out, and the fact that it's so successful, and the fact that people are still talking about it to this day.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Richard Williams is no longer with us. He passed.
Sadly.
He passed away several years ago.
Yep, as did Hoskins.
Yeah, Hoskins isn't with us either. What other character? Are there any other actors or people from this movie that are no longer with us?
Well, I mean, none that, I mean, of the bunch, I mean, Mel Blanc, obviously, but aside from that, I don't really, none that
Yeah.
come to mind. And June Foray, we've lost a lot of the voices, so man, that's about, yeah.
Like Clarence Nash was briefly in this with Donald, but I think he was already, I think that's more of an archive rather than he was alive at the point. This is actually one of the earliest times where Donald was voiced by Tony Anselmo.
Ah, I like Anselmo.
Yep, this is like one of his earliest times voicing him outside of like DuckTales. Like I think this actually came out around the same time. So it's like this movie is important in many ways. Like I can't possibly list how many ways this movie is important. But it's a seminal movie. It's a landmark, game changing. It basically saved American animation as we know it. Then what more can we say? It led to a modern day renaissance. I think that does it. What do you think, Dragon? Unless there's like anything else you want to close out on.
I mean, I think just Roger Rabbit is something special that absolutely just redefined the genre. It opened the door. I think it was just like the creative fire is kind of lit under Disney to like, guys, this was done, like in inspiration from Disney, and of course, in large part thanks to Disney. But this is, Disney animator did not make this happen, guys. You got to aspire to this, and that very much is like challenged them to make stuff like pretty much the Renaissance, like Little Mermaid onward. In terms of like, guys, we got to up our game here. We got to be in the same ballpark as Roger. We lucked down Roger Rabbit. Okay, we absolutely lucked down in terms of like having our name on, saying, okay, you can put our characters in this movie. And you can use our branding and all this, but it just.
And I don't have issues with like modern day like Disney stuff, or like as much as some other people do, but I think they need to go back to taking risks like they did with Roger Rabbit.
Oh, of course, risk is always key in that sort of thing. That's the thing. Roger Rabbit absolutely is a risk of let's get ambitious.
I mean, Roger Rabbit was like kind of like an ultimate risk versus reward. Like if this failed, this could have absolutely destroyed the studio.
And again, it's a big shout out to Spielberg persevering and really saying no. If I want to get an animation, I want to do it in a big way. And Spielberg did change the game in a respect with the idea there. I mean, he got all the right people together for this. I mean, and by proxy, this again is the seeds of like DreamWorks in a sense, and it's also the seeds of again, Zemeckis has like another film classic under his belt. I mean, if you want to look at like Zemeckis' body of work, I mean, obviously there's a lot of good ones, but I mean, predominantly you have the Back to the Future trilogy, you have Roger Rabbit, and you have Forrest Gump in terms of the ones like he could just hang it up after those movies.
I mean, essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
yeah, go on. Sorry.
So I mean, yeah. So overall, I mean, again, Spielberg, I think he was kind of the connecting the lightning rod on a lot of this, because he brought all the right elements together. And of course, Gary K. Wolf, we would not be here talking about this without him, right? Who censored Roger Rabbit in the first place. And again, so rarely do you have an author who's going to have he's going to be humble enough to say, you know what? Movie did it possibly better. Movie did something really good, made something special out of it. I want to get in on that action. That's why we have more Roger Rabbit books and stuff. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll see him back. But even if we don't, I think we're all content with what we got here. This is pretty special. This is pretty darn good. The Roger Rabbit again is like it's absolutely lightning in a bottle in terms of animation. Is yet to be replicated properly. I mean, we've gotten kind of close to that Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie, but it still doesn't have the power of like going around to Eddie Valiant's desk. That's a scene without animation in it, but still, like we have moments like that. We have moments where Hoskins is owning the fray. We also have moments where we have animated elements extenuating a scene and still being dramatic when Judge Doom's eyes turn the dagger staring at Eddie Valiant. It's like the little touches go a long way, and they still go a long way to this day. And every time you revisit this movie, you're going to find something really cool or something to appreciate or something to look back on fondly. And that's Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Like I said, as much as as we talked about the potential sequels and things like that, and a lot of movies even getting sequels, it's actually kind of a neat novelty that this movie actually hasn't gotten one.
Yeah. All right, so we should thank the lovely folks in the comments.
We got Little Blue, Z and K. Yeah, we also got Executive Judge stopping by, and we got a lot from Z and K.
Yeah.
So Z and K, thank you for all your engagement. We got Richard's victims. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Jim. And thank you all for your comments.
All right.
So thank you all for joining us on this momentous occasion. It's been a long time coming, even though we basically just learned about it the other day, funnily enough. So thank you all for joining us on this evening, and thanks to all who will watch it. And stay loony, my friends.